Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting of Wednesday, the 16th of February. Welcome to the councillors, staff, the media, public, and attending, and all those at home who are listening in. I'd like to call for apologies, but I think we're all here, so there will be none. Extraordinary business. Anyone got an extraordinary business? I know of none. No. Declarations of interest in the matters on today's agenda? No. Thank you. We'll move into the public forum, and we have Mrs. Hilda Liddell who wishes to speak to councillors. And come forward, Mrs. Liddell, to the table there, and one of the staff will assist and turn the light on for you. And tell us about the development contributions reconsideration request, which is in our agenda probably in about 15-20 minutes time. So if you could tell us now what your concerns are, and we're all listening, and then councillors could ask some questions. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, we're building a small one-bedroom, 40 squares little home. Okay, we started with $32,000, and we have 2 grandsons who are registered builders, and my husband is a very handy man. So we had all that in place. We came to the council to find out, we were doing pricings for everything to see if this was, if the building was viable. We came to the council and inquired on the amount of money we would need for building inspections and building permits. And they came up with a round figure of $2,500. So we budgeted for $3,000 because everything runs over. Okay, so things started, and we got all the pricings done. We started getting some correspondence from council, but it was all online. We do not have a computer. So I rang on the, I've got to take my glasses off to read, but I've got to have them on to see you. So, sorry. Excuse my wobbling head. It will not fall off.
That's okay.
Right. So on the 13th of July, I rang the council and requested that we have everything sent to us in hard copy posted, because we couldn't read any of the emails. Right. This was refused. The woman on the other end of the phone, I don't know her name, and she said, no, we do everything online now. We do everything by emails. I've since found out, just last week, talking to a lawyer, that is actually illegal. You've got to have some way of communicating with others that is acceptable to them. So, but it was refused. So on the 17th of August, I came in to pay my rates, and I talked to a man. Again, I'm not good at names and I forget to take them down, but I talked to a man about this problem that we had, and he went over to somebody at the computer, a woman at the computer, and said, right, make sure that everything goes through in hard copy and post it out to this woman. So that was that. We thought that was the end of that problem. On the 3rd of September, a PIM was approved. Now, we got that information via ClickWorks. ClickWorks are the people that were doing they did the plans and did the steel, what do you call it, framing and everything. So we got it from ClickWorks that this PIM was approved. On the 15th of September, the building permit was approved and we paid $3,646. So all in all, it was just over 4,000 instead of 2.5. So, you know, with the 300 or whatever it was that we paid in the first place. Right, on the 11th, so we paid everything, away we went. 11th of October, we got an account for $4,896. Now, all it had on it was dwelling. A bill for that much, with just dwelling on it. So we thought, what is this? This is a mistake. I ring the council. The woman that answered the phone said she wasn't sure about this, but she would get somebody to ring us and tell us about it. Okay, we waited. No call, no phone call, nothing. And we came to the conclusion that it was a mistake. So, on the 11th, no, where are we now? Then, November, we got another bill with a red thing underneath to say, look, you know, this is overdue, which just isn't like us, you know. So I rang again and I said, look, I want a meeting about this to find out what this is about. The woman on the other end of the phone said, well, it's infrastructure fees or something, and I wanted to know what that was, and she said, oh, everybody has to pay it, it's infrastructure fees, and that was about it. And I said, I would really like a meeting to get this clarified. She said, oh, well, we'll send you out some information about it, and if you don't understand, you can then have a meeting. I said, okay, fair enough. Nothing came, nothing. On the 8th of December, another account appeared with a threatening letter. The threatening letter was not signed. So I immediately rang and demanded a meeting, which I had with Mike Farrell. He was extremely helpful. He was good, and I said, look, we do not have money for this. This was not on our budget. We knew nothing about it. So what's got to be done? And he suggested that I write a letter to the executive, Mr. Riek, and explain the situation, which I did. So then I wrote another letter with points of interest to bring it to this point. Okay? There we are.
Thank you very much for that, for your presentation there, Mrs. Liddell, and the background information to where you've got to now. We're going to have some questions from councillors. We've got Councillor Falloon who'd like to talk to you.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 1 or 2 background points. Presumably built the section with the intention of building a new house on it.
Absolutely.
So the real estate agent did not inform you that you would have to pay a development fund contribution?
No. There was no, oh, my glasses are fogging up because of the
You're not the only one.
mask. Sorry. I'll just wipe them. Right, now I can see
a problem. And then when you spoke initially to the council, you asked and they said the costs of putting up a building, new house, would be about $2,500.
Yes, yeah.
But obviously what they were referring to was really only the consents, and again, no mention of development fund contributions.
Absolutely.
So the first you heard about development fund contributions is when you had a meeting with Mr. Farrell.
No, the first I heard about it was my second call on the phone, the second phone call, and she said it was for infrastructure or whatever it was, and she would send out the information, which never arrived.
Now, initially you said they emailed the information to you. Surely they must have had some email address that they'd got from someone, because, as you say, you haven't got a computer. But did you used to have an email address or what?
Yes, we had an email address, but we can't read. I've got a big problem with my left eye at the moment. I'm going backwards and forwards. So I only have my tiny little, this is it. Now, you cannot read any sort of document on that. My husband's had problems with his eyes, and he's even worse than I am. So that's when I rang and said, could you please post everything out, because there's no way I can read a document on this.
Thank you.
Councillors, any further questions? Mrs Liddell, have you always lived in Mayfield, or are you new to the area?
No, we've only been there just over 2 years. We bought a section there.
Oh, yeah. So with no house on, obviously.
With no house on it.
Yeah. So whereabouts do you live at the moment?
On the section in a bus.
Right, okay, thanks. Lane. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You just said to us that you've got 2 sons who are builders. Is that correct?
Two grandsons.
2 grandsons.
That are registered builders, yes.
Okay, and they did the work for you?
Yes, they've done, they helped with the piles. My husband, at 75 years old, dug all the holes for the piles, and they came and every sort of point they come and check, because they're down in Oamaru, so they come up, or one of them or
Okay,
other come up and just check the work that's being done.
And they looked at the limb and the inspections what the council did, and they didn't mention anything about the contribution you had to pay. No, not at all.
They all they got was the plans and things.
Yes,
That's
okay.
all they have.
Okay, that's all that.
The only other thing could have been that Clickworks, when they got this PIM thing that they sent through, said that we've got a PIM, whatever a PIM is, they may have got more information, I don't know. But we got nothing. Just this thing to say that the PIM was through, and that our building permit should be through in about 10 days.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
That's right.
Lane, if you put your light off. Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask that you obviously, did you have a project manager, or was it just left in your grandson's hands to look into council policies and what the requirements were building on a section?
No, my husband did that before we even started, so we knew there's no sewage there, but we knew our section was too small for a what do you call it?
Septic tank?
Septic tank. Yeah, it's too small for a septic tank. So we're getting a tank that has to be emptied. So he went into all those details. But
so no information obviously popped up to tell you there was
no
contribution. Okay.
No, nothing at all.
Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for general information, a PIM stands for Property Information Memorandum. That's what a PIM is. And
all right.
it probably wouldn't tell you what development contributions you may have to pay. So that's all that did.
Right. Thank you.
Councillors, any further questions of Mrs Liddell? No. Councillor Mackay.
I have not got any questions of Mrs Liddell. I have a question through you to our Chief Executive, if I may.
Might be save that for the report.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, there is going to be a report?
Yes, it's item number 8 on the agenda. Yep. So we're just hearing what Ms Liddell has got to say to us at this stage, and we will consider the request at item number 8 in the report shortly. So if no further questions, thank you very much for presenting to us and telling us your story. That's great.
Thank you.
If you'd like to just take a seat at the back if you wish, and you can wait and we'll consider it in 15, 20 minutes time. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks very much for coming in. Next up, we have Waka Katahi here. So we might, James, if you'd like to come forward now. You've got your team, Sean, Brett and Mark with you.
Oh, I'm happy that they stay there unless they...
Okay, no, it's entirely up to you. And thanks for coming along and presenting to us today on things that Waka Katahi are doing in the district. And we have some questions for you, no doubt at the end. So, James, the floor is yours. And good to see you again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry that it's in these circumstances you can't quite see all of me, and apologies if I have to pause occasionally because my glasses fog up like
We're getting used to that, aren't we?
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you are. Look, in the interest of being brief and cutting to the areas that I'm sure you're more interested in, I'm going to rattle through the first half of the presentation in reasonable pace because it's reasonably generic and may not be of specific interest to you. To get to some Ashburton specific issues. If questions pop up that we need to go back to, fine, happy to, but I'm hoping that I'm going to address everything that you're interested in.
Good.
I did just want to pause briefly and remind you, because I think the last couple of times I was here, circumstances were different. Once was immediately after the weather event last year, middle of last year, and another was in the bridge debate. So,
James, just before you do start, you're aware that we're recording our meetings and they get live streamed, and you can re-watch this tonight at your leisure at home.
I hope you'll forgive me if I don't, but thank you for the option.
Yeah.
I did just want to note that, of course, since about the middle of last year, Waka Katahi has re-regionalised some of its functions, and I am one of 5 directors of regional relationships around the country, and you can see how we divide the country up on the slide there. And it appears to me, at least anyway, that Ashburton District understands they can come to me with anything, and I'm willing to go ferreting and try to solve the issues as and when they arrive. So please feel free to continue to do that. As an agency, we're sort of, where we are in the 3-year funding cycle, having launched the NLTP late last year, delayed for COVID reasons. We're now in the sort of rebuild of what will be the new funding cycle to come, with a focus on various changes to systems. So. The One Network framework is busy being rolled out, and we're working closely with your officers. Hopefully you've already updated your road classifications into the One Network framework, and that's great. And you will have seen maybe the launch of a new public awareness campaign targeted around Road to Zero as of this Sunday, just gone, targeted really at disrupting New Zealand's attitudes to road safety as we try to bring the focus onto the government's road safety strategy to reduce deaths and serious injuries on our roads by 40% by 2035. We also have, and it will be of interest to this council, a commitment from the Crown to review land transport funding, because we know that the existing system is not fit for purpose and will not be able to cope with the demands on it into the future. That is a review that we are working with the Ministry of Transport and Treasury on. I would anticipate that local government, either as individual councils or collectively through Local Government New Zealand, will have high interest in how this review tracks. And as I have more information, I am happy and will certainly share it with you, but also I encourage you to stay involved through Local Government New Zealand, because it is of critical importance to all of those who have interest in the land transport sector. You will expect more, I'm sure, announcements from the Crown directly in around May in terms of emissions reduction. There is a lot of work underway. The draft emissions reduction plan was consulted on towards the end of last year by the Crown, and as I say, announcements will come in May. But I did just want to say an email will have been received by your chief executive probably yesterday or the day before about a judicial review that is underway. We have been, we are currently being taken to court by an interest group movement for the NLTP that is in current effect now, and whether or not we have given proper effect to the government policy statement on land transport with regard to emissions reduction. If that action is successful, we will have to redo the entire National Land Transport Program. There is an opportunity, and I don't wish to lobby you particularly hard, but simply to point it out, there is an opportunity for other road controlling authorities to join that JR, and I'm sure there will be discussion around local authorities as to how and whether that is worthwhile, because it would mean revisiting all existing funding commitments under this NLTP. Second bridge, and note, at least from my perspective, and I'm happy to hear if you have a different opinion, but from my perspective, things appear to be going well as these sort of things move through the funding cycle. So we are working with your officers and your consultants on the detailed business case. That work is expected to take 18 months through to about the middle of next year, and that is all that is required in terms of our process to get to a final investment decision. So the consultants are Stantec, who are engaged by you, and then you receive funding assistance from us in order to make that happen. I understand that the steering group is meeting fortnightly, and as it did in prior parts of the work, and as my staff certainly report that that's going well. I expect that you will be wanting to have a funding discussion with us and with the rest of the Crown towards the end of the year, and probably on from that. You may wish to have it earlier than that, but I suspect that the end of the year, when as the detailed business case starts to become clearer, is about the time, perhaps post elections for the council, that you'll want to kick off that discussion with us. As I say, as a note at the bottom there, given the current regional priority of the program, we'd expect pre-implementation to work to begin in the next NLTP period. And that doesn't preclude, I don't mean by writing it that way to preclude construction also occurring in that period. It's just that is the next piece of the pipeline. Walnut Avenue, I know is of interest to you, and I drove past a very large number of orange cones to get here. It's been a productive construction season, although the weather has in recent times gotten in the way of some of the work. So you'll be familiar with the project in terms of signalisation of both of those intersections, and some of the works that also affect Kiwi Rail in the middle of sandwiched between the two. The majority of the works on East and West Street should be completed by the end of the summer construction season, weather dependent. And after that, there will be a piece of work that we will need Kiwi Rail to get on and do in between the two. Once the Kiwi Rail work is done, then we can do the finalised works to get the signals turned on. We can't turn the signals on until the Kiwi Rail component is completed. And we would anticipate the Kiwi Rail component of that work to occur somewhere between April and August. So total completion of this project we hope to have done, clear and done by the end of this year. I know a question was asked before I arrived on the total cost of the project, and at the moment it's about $10.5 million. Rapidly moving on to the other end of town, Tynwald. I'm sorry if that map is particularly difficult to read, but it does show the extent of the project, and I did want to call out, because it's come up through our public engagement, we are well aware that some residents would prefer that there were traffic signals at Graham Street instead of Agnes. The key thing to understand here is what the critical part of the program is the east-west connection. And if we signalise Graham Street, we wouldn't get the east-west connection that we will if we put the signals where we're planning to. But as a note on the slide, we will have an improved right-hand turning bay at Graham Street, and the signalisation further up will allow breaks in the traffic to make that cross movement easier anyway. So hopefully that is actually enough to satisfy the concerns. We understand them, but the primary issue for us is reinforcing that east-west connection in Tynwald. as I say, if there are other things that pop up on that project, please do let us know, and we'll do our best to work through them either with affected community or with yourselves. State Highway 1, Mr Mayor, I know you in particular have asked, and I have a paper copy of the summary of submissions that was conducted in the 2019 consultation for safety improvements on the State Highway 1 section. I will make sure that an electronic link to that is also provided to you all.
Thank you.
But in terms of the State Highway 1 safety improvements, we have priorly consulted on safety improvements from here to Rolleston, effectively. Given the available resources, we have now focused this next period of work on the most important stretch in terms of deaths and serious injury reduction. So we are moving towards construction of safety works, and the key features are featured on that slide. So things like flexible median barriers, wide centre lines, safe turnaround bays, and a roundabout. In the section of State Highway 1 from the Selwyn River to the Rakaya River. We have feasibility work underway for the section north of that, so Selwyn to Rolleston, effectively, and then there's another big New Zealand Upgrade Program project at Rolleston. That would leave, as the third segment of the full corridor, Rakaya to Ashburton, yet to be done. Happy to engage with you about how and when and why, but effectively it is a prioritisation based on safety, based on risk. If there are particular questions on what's planned in that corridor, I'm happy to talk you through that, but I would expect public engagement on that section, that is to say the Selwyn River to Rakaya, to occur shortly. Last rattle through from me, and then we can have some questions, I'm sure. In terms of operation of the network and maintenance and renewals, we are still working through with you, as you will understand, the emergency works packages that arise from the weather events, including from last year. So those are the figures we have to date on your emergency works claims. As it notes, they're 65% paid to date, but of course that will be fully done, in the fullness of time. I do want to acknowledge that there is substantial disruption to this district from and through travellers from closures on our network, particularly when we lose the Rakaya Bridge. It is a very large detour that creates quite a lot of traffic disruption. And there was a particular event at the end of in November last year, which was not executed the way we had committed to do so. And I'm sorry for that. We have taken that up with the contractors responsible. There is an option to helicopter staff out to the gorge in order to undertake traffic management, but it does depend on where those staff are, when we are aware, or when they become aware that the closure occurs. Nonetheless, we do strive to be better. So if that continues to be a problem, please continue to raise it with us. It helps us deal with the contractor. As I say, and as I think we indicated to you late last year, Mr Mayor, we are interested in investigating the feasibility of signals at that. I know in the past we've said that's impossible to signalise, it's too far away, it's too hard to think. Technology's moved on, and it may well be that we can actually look at signalisation up there that can be turned on effectively at the push of a button, so that when it's required we can get some traffic management up there a whole lot easier.
Yep.
With regard to way right, following the consultation and discussions that has previously been done, it looks as though the best option to mitigate the concerns about turning, particularly to access way right stations, is to go with two way right stations that are we're now looking on either side of State Highway 1, so one for northbound traffic and one for southbound traffic, but on the other side of the Rakaya River. Okay, so they'll service the area, and we talked about them at Rakaya. They're likely to be north of the river, around the rail bridge. I'm happy to, again, take that up. And last but not least, it is worth noting that in terms of the NOC contract, that is the maintenance contract for this part of the State Highway network, that is up for tender later this calendar year. And I'm sure you will have feedback for us on how that NOC contract has gone, and we would be happy to receive it. That's it from me, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, James. Just quite a wee bit there. Shall we?
Yeah, no, that was a fast-paced rattle through, I'm sure.
Yeah. Shall we go back to the one of the first slides of Ashburton, and we'll just do them one by one. I'm sure there's questions. I think it was the Ashburton Second Bridge. Great. Like the first bullet point.
Good.
Yeah. Not so happy about the second.
Right.
And there's just two new numbers in there which, if they were separated on their own, would be good. Either a 1 or an 8, but not combined. 1 month to complete,
1 month
or
to
8 months to
Yep,
complete.
sure. No.
18 months seems a long time to complete a business case to move into the funding, to where the funding's coming from. And the reason I want to expedite that bridge, is its accessibility and resilience for our district.
Sure.
As we know, in the floods, the Ashburton River bridge was compromised. It chopped the South Island in half.
Absolutely.
As did the road, Thompson's Track, and the Ashburton-Arundel Gorge Road. Yeah, if I got that right. Which connects, and that was also wiped out with gaps in it because of the flooding. And the resilience is our thing, and this is in Ashburton. And people were running out of food in Dunedin because trucks couldn't get through. So we put the Ashburton Second Bridge as urgent. The Prime Minister said, hurry up and get your business case done, come back to me, and we'll see where the funding is. So the 18 months is not sitting palatably with us. By July, 6 months' time would be a lot better. Can't understand why it would take so long. So
detailed business case will include preliminary design, and literally the engineering design and the approaches. So I'm happy to go back and ask if there are any levers we can pull that would help things go fast. What are the things that can speed things up?
Okay.
Building a bridge isn't an easy thing. So
that's right.
It will inevitably take some time.
Neil?
I can just confirm the draft detailed business case is due to be completed in July this year. But I don't know what the process is from there in terms of
Detailed business case or the draft business case?
it's the draft detailed business case.
Okay. Right. Well, I'll happily go back and chest that number then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil.
We'll just keep pushing along.
I totally understand. I was in the room when the Prime Minister sitting next to you said, as you said, I totally understand why you want this to move as fast as possible.
And we've also, Civil Defence also sent NEMA, Civil Defence, one of them, a letter off to Minister of Transport, the Prime Minister, and the CEO of Waka Kotahi, prioritising that bridge and also that road, either take it back as a state highway and put more monies into it, or 95% far rate it. But to date, I don't think we've had a response to that letter. But there was at the tail end of last year that one went.
I'll check that because you should have. I saw the letter.
One has been produced, but it might be a.
Mr. Mayor, I understand there was a letter, and I think there's been a response to your letter. So we're perhaps looking for a second response, perhaps.
Right. Okay.
I'll check that. Look, I do want to say, the supply chain disruptions that you talk about, the severance caused by the weather event. I mean, it is. I think I won't say it's the key reason, but it's certainly a key reason why taking longer to consider the costs of that severance, as we did last year post the event, in terms of is one of the reasons why this is now a much more favourable project. So understanding the true cost has been really important to moving this project forward.
And understand it's in the National Land Transport Plan, or it's in the Regional Land Transport Plan for 24 to 27.
Correct.
But we'd like to slide that forward. That's
Understand.
great. Question from John? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your positive presentation. Question I have relates to not so much the funding. We know we've still got to have discussions to find the shortfall of 39% for the funding. But the question I have relates to, with the pressures going on NZTA's funding requirements, when we come to build the bridge in late 2024-25 on my timescale, will you be able to front up with your share of the money?
It's a very good question. You'll appreciate I can't commit to a decision that's yet to be taken. But if I come back to the point I made right at the start, that is one of the reasons why we need to review the funding mechanisms for the land transport system, because we are currently asking the existing pot of money to do too much. And you're all experiencing the consequences of that. So you do not want to be, and I totally appreciate it, you do not want to be in the position of, as you painted, you don't want to get however long it takes to the point of being ready to go and us turning around and saying, well, it's a lovely bridge, but we can't afford it. That's not the position you need to be in. And it's not the position we would want to be in either. So that is why you must and we must work to make sure that the land transport system has sustainable funding for the future. I can't, other than saying that, I can't commit to an answer, because that is a decision that the board or the appropriate parts of what they will make once the detailed business case is completed. But I totally appreciate the concern.
Thanks. It looks like there's no more questions on the second bridge, so moving on to the Walnut Ave. Yeah, you said it was about 10.5 million budgeted for that job, and using the figure just to put something in context, it's 10.5 million to do that intersection. Our roading program for the whole district is about 16 million.
Mm-hmm.
So either that's overpriced, or you're getting a hell of a good deal out of us for what we do on the roading. I don't know which way you would like to look at it, but if that's 10.5, 16 to do the whole district.
So to be clear, it is two intersections and a rail crossing. It isn't one intersection, but I understand. I understand the point.
Yeah, 2,500 kilometres of road that we look after for another 6 million. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just a comment, really.
Things aren't cheap.
They're correct. Any questions on Walnut Ave, councillors? Yeah.
Thank you. Just that is a typo at the bottom, early to 2030.
Oh gosh, yes, that
isn't
is very definitely 2023.
Good.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll be fixing it by then. Yeah, no.
But looking at the project,
23. It's definitely a typo.
Looking at the project, it's going well. It's looking good.
It looked nice driving through it.
They're accommodating travellers and pedestrians, whatever. They're doing a really good job. So that's great.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. What's the next one?
Timor.
Yeah, questions, councillor Timor. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Good morning, this afternoon, James.
Good afternoon.
I've got two contentions.
Good.
Our previous roading manager seemed to push for cycle tracks on the other side of the railway line. I can't see why they shouldn't continue between the railway line and East Street, and they'll connect up with all the way through Ashburton. The viaduct is a very important two-way, because as we build more and more on the west to Tynwald, your proposal is to make it only eastward bound and have bikes. Well, how many bikes are going to come through there compared to the traffic that goes through two ways? If you close that for westward traffic, everybody's going to come all the way down to the lights, and you're going to congest that part of Tynwald with cars that usually would be dropping off a lot earlier. I can't understand why it's still not two ways for vehicle traffic under the viaduct in the future. It's quite a contorted way for a cyclist at the lights corner there to have to go across the pedestrian crossing and then negotiate across the traffic coming down from Lagmore Road to get onto the bike track. Whereas if you go straight through, they'll just carry straight on down between the railway line and the grass.
Thank you, councillor. I've learnt in the sort of 8 months I've been here not to tie myself into knots as a traffic manager. I'm happy to go and get the detailed answers on those and come back to you. I'll email you directly.
Good, thanks. Any further questions on Tynwald? Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At our last meeting, we spoke about putting passing bays on the cycle and pedestrian crossings on the State Highway 1 bridge. Has there been any more work done on investigating this? And if there has, when are we likely to see some improvement? Because it's a bit of a disaster at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, councillor, for reminding me. As to timing, I don't know. I recall, and it's worth reminding everyone, there isn't room on the bridge to do a full lane, but we did decide, we did tell you that there is room for more passing bays. Again, I will take that. Come back to you. I'm happy to let you know.
Thanks for that, James. Caroline?
Thank you. Just a quick point of clarification. The business case looking at the Timwood thoroughfare and the lights and the crossings will take approximately 6 months. When is the go ahead and what's the ETA on that?
Next construction season after that.
So what's that, 12 months away?
We're sure.
Yeah, so,
You just have to come up to the speaker so people at home can hear as well. There we go.
Yeah, so James is saying the next construction season, so we get through this summer, through winter and into next spring.
Yeah, so spring.
So that'll be next October.
Yeah.
24 or 23? 22.
22.
22, October 22. Oh,
be.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think John just alluded to, as part of that Timwood corridor, is there going to be a spruce up of the bridge, like a clean up and a sorting out the clip?
I'll come back to you on the upgrades on the bridge. I mean, they're not substantial, but again, you know, we did say that passing bays were possible, and that we'd.
Well, we need that for because there's a lot of residential homes on the other side, and everybody's on these jolly scooters. They can't get across.
No, I'm sorry that I didn't come armed with that. I should have. It's one thing.
That's okay. I think next one, State Highway 1 improvements. And you've got the consultation document there now, and you'll email it to us. That's great.
Yep, I've got a paper copy, and I'll get you the link. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it. What's in there, but I think the main feedback you would have got was don't do it. Look at something else. And when the consultation was going on, that's what people were saying they were going to put in, but not knowing what went in. So just wondering why you would carry on with the median safety barriers, which I think we call ropes down the middle of the road in layman's terms. And at the road safety meeting we had about 2 weeks ago, there was concern because we're a largely agricultural area. If you get a silage chopper or a tractor and a plough and a hay baler, they're only doing 40 k's with no ability to pass, then you can hold the traffic up for quite some time. That was the concerns.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I do know that the team have heard that you can't attempt to put wire rope median barriers down the whole length and expect people to cope with agricultural vehicles. So I certainly hope that when you see the proposal for that section, that you see that taken into account compared to what has been consulted on previously.
Okay, we'll wait and see what you propose. That'd be great. Caroline?
If there is the wire, median strip things, do we have an opportunity then to appeal that decision, or is there some way we can input that if that's come through?
Oh, I expect you to tell me, but
then what's your influence on that?
I will happily engage with the team, but in essence, the reason we are proceeding is because we have a national mandate to reduce deaths and serious injuries on the road.
The safety priority, is that because there's more accidents north of the Rakaia River, is that right?
Yeah, so if you want the figures, in the 10 years, 2011 to 2021, there were 12 deaths and 47 serious injuries on this section.
Oh, you mean our section?
No, the section that we're talking about proceeding with,
north,
Selwyn to Rakaia.
Yeah.
There were 7 deaths and 33 serious injuries, Selwyn to Templeton. So that's the section north of that. And then for your section, 2 deaths and 17 serious injuries. So it is not a safe stretch of, the whole stretch is not a safe stretch of road. Given our need to prioritise, we've targeted the most important, but we will need to continue to engage with the community about how to deal with.
Absolutely, because we consider this very important.
Oh no, of course you do.
Yeah, and I think at the 18 months ago when we had the last general election, one of the promises from one of the parties was to 4-lane from Ashburton to Christchurch. So no doubt, I wouldn't rush ahead with this proposal just yet as in building it, because I think it will become an election issue when that round comes up again. So,
and as a public servant, we will do the government that response to.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, James. Just you've mentioned it here, and it came up in our road safety meeting about the Wayrite station.
Yes.
And I noticed that you've said it, and it was said rather quietly at our meeting, that you're looking at putting the Wayrite stations either side of the rail overhead bridge. So from that, do we take it the southbound one will still be in the original site that you planned?
To be fair, I don't know. I know that there are property considerations, and I just know that we are now looking at two, one either side of the road, and no longer this side of the Rakaia River on the north side. So that means, I mean, we just drove through the corridor. They are somewhere around that road rail bridge, but I wouldn't say they're on or beside the bridge. Okay, there's limited space between the rail bridge and the main river crossing bridge. So.
Yeah, I think that was the original site, was to put the one station in north and south would both use it.
Yeah, we need to split. We can't ask the traffic to go to one side of the road.
But at the road safety meeting, if we got it right, they were talking about having the southbound in the same place as the other one, in between the two bridges, which would still be problematic.
Well, I'm happy to take that feedback back.
Yeah, so we don't care where you put it, except not between the two bridges. And we're thinking safety-wise.
No, noted.
And the other reason too, because with the turn off to Leaston, there's been a few accidents right at that point, and you'll see it when you go home, like just before you go up over the rail bridge, people get in a wee place there to turn right to go to Leaston, and there's been a few crashes there of late, so it's not the best place. Thank you.
Yeah, I know of one death there many years ago, 10, 15, 15 years ago, I think, whatever, yeah. Councillor Lovett.
You're talking about safety, and there's a question that was asked me several days ago. The two intersections below Rolleston,
yes,
where you got all the markers out.
Yes.
Is there anything happening there, roundabouts going in there in the near future, or is that permanent?
Let me hope my geography is correct here. So we're talking Duns Crossing and Burnham, or Duns Crossing and further?
Well, both of those.
Okay, so yes. So yes, Duns Crossing is the southern extent of the New Zealand Upgrade Program that is about Rolleston access. So yes, at the moment, and the proposal we consulted on with the community towards the end of last year is for a major roundabout at Duns Crossing that will act as the sort of southern access to both residential Rolleston, industrial Rolleston on the west side, and allow through traffic obviously in a safe way. Further south is Burnham. So that would be number two. Again, that's got at the moment only a variable speed indicator sign based on whether traffic is queuing at the crossroads. That isn't part of the extent of the Rolleston project, but that is subject to the feasibility work on, so it's the northern of the 3/3, if you want to break the highway from here to Christchurch in thirds, it's the northern section of that, so there's feasibility work underway there, and we're looking at how we can treat that intersection with a roundabout.
So they're probably another year or two away, or?
The feasibility will be this year.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it is worth noting, in particular, that intersection of Burnham is obviously quite a lot of interest to the Defence Force, who move very large, oversized vehicles through an intersection that cannot cope with the movements. We need to do something.
And just on what's on the board now, the Rakaia Gorge one, I think the traffic light, which you could turn off and on remotely, would solve all the problems. And with technology today, it's probably the easiest and simplest, and we think would fix the problem in the event that the Rakaia Bridge is blocked or whatever.
It certainly seems that technology has moved on since we last said no.
So progressing that, I think you'd get great support from this table. Stuart?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to comment on the ARG, the Arundel Rakaia Gorge Highway. I think you call it the Scenic Highway, former Highway 72. It goes right across our county, and it gobbles up so much of our maintenance fund. Our roading manager asked him when we would finalise repairs on it, and he says never. You finish one and you'll start the other. Well, so much of our resealing, especially our rehabilitation, goes into that one highway, which is used for a lot of through traffic. I know the Mayor has appealed to you for a bit higher subsidy on that particular piece of road. It was a state highway, but it's a real suck of our roading budget, and we would be very pleased if we did get a special bit higher subsidy for that particular road.
Noted. Look, I'm aware that your mayor and other mayors, to be fair, raised with us the issue of whether that should be state highway in the second half of last year. It isn't something that we are actively considering. Nonetheless, we are also aware of the maintenance costs for you. I am aware that you and your officers are actively considering increased maintenance for that corridor. And I spoke to our investment advisor just before I got in the car this morning. We are actively interested in working with you to understand how and whether we can support that. It'll be part, I'm sure, of your annual plan process in the new year, but it is certainly something that we wish to remain in dialogue with you over.
We're just doing an annual plan process at the moment, so something for this year would be.
Yeah. Financial year.
We're just working on that now, so anything contributing to that would be excellent. Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. You referenced earlier about the Timwood corridor, that putting lights there would sort of make it easier for bikes and cars to turn right or left off the main road. We have a problem, as I'm sure you're very well aware, with the whole of the Ashburton Timwood corridor is incredibly slow.
Yes.
Especially weekends and busy periods. We've been assured that the main cause for this was the roundabout at Walnut Avenue. We were told was a lot, and that when this is repaired, the flow will improve. Are you going to follow up? I mean, some of us have some concerns about that. Are you going to follow up with that and measure that, or how's that? I mean, I don't see how that will improve it. We've still got the lights that count down, and we're going to have more lights now in Timwood, which we need. I just don't know how that's going to.
No, I understand. Again, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I think the answer is we have to, because and you may not have caught it, but the impact of the intersection upgrade at Walnut Avenue will also have flow-on impacts to the future network once you get to build the bridge.
Okay.
You know, so how the whole network works in Ashburton is extremely important to how, you know, it's not just. All of these projects are interconnected, and we need to stay live each time we poke something else in, that we don't pop it out somewhere else. So the short answer is we need to make sure that.
So you'll be reviewing that. I mean, when we introduce policies or anything, we review it and we measure it and we see if it was successful or otherwise.
We will need to make sure that Walnut Avenue has done what it was supposed to.
Well, you will be following that on and seeing if it's doing the job, and then will you feed that back to us, or how will we get that information? Or
I'm sure we'll work through Neil to make sure that Neil's nodding behind you. But yeah.
Thanks. And just a couple of things left to go. One is entrance in and out of the domain by doing the work on the West Street and Walnut Ave intersection. It's proposed that we don't have a right turn out of the domain and needing a right turn in, needing a new road into the domain of a different entrance. We've stalled on our side because of budget, what we initially budgeted for, and then what it was, not quite a quote, but a quantity surveyor's estimate, we were something way apart, and council's decided we can't afford to do it. So we are asking for a contribution from NZTA Wakakatahi.
I spoke to Neil about it late last year. I'm aware of it. We haven't got the solution for you yet, but nor do I believe we're in the position of frankly having to say no to you yet. It's just, I think we need to continue to talk.
Finish that project.
About how to solve that problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the answer we had, James, was that if there was some money left over from the Walnut Ave work, there could be a discussion about whether some of it might. So I guess the question is it likely, in your estimation, that the Walnut intersection is going to result in some leftovers, and if so, how excited are you about a contribution to the Domain Development Road?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think broadly that is the right way to think about it. Although technically, any unders and overs in that project are also unders and overs in other New Zealand Upgrade Programme projects. They're not confined to the particular project. So you do end up fighting with other projects for access to contingency. The short answer is it will come down to whether or not we can make a good case for that extra work. And that's why I say I think we need to be in dialogue about your funding situation, about the importance of the project in the community, and whether or not, frankly, it should be included. I'm not I can't be in the business of giving you confidence, but I think we should continue to talk about how to fix it.
Yeah, and council has looked at the eroding network and the flooding and what happened there, and the now the potholes and the complaints we get. We can't put money into a new entrance there when there's all that work that needs to be done on our 2,700 kilometres of road to spend so much on that one. But just speaking that the emergency works and the payments you've given us, very much appreciated and very helpful for us, so thanks very much for that. It was really good. Moving on to, I think, Meth and Liz, you've got an item there.
Yeah, I have, thank you. Thanks, James. So you may have heard that, and I'll give you a wee bit of a story before I answer some questions. But there's a lot of Methven residents who are concerned about the speed limit going out of Methven along State Highway 77. Obviously got 2 new subdivisions, one either side. There's the new Opuki thermal pools that have gone in halfway down, and there's sort of a makeshift walkway that a lot of people use to walk up to just behind the racecourse and along Holmes Road, quite a popular walkway through there. So after speaking quite a few times at some of our road safety meetings, Methven Community Board meetings, and after a letter to our local paper in Methven saying where someone had watched the Waka Kotahi ads on TV about the speed limits, love those ads, yep, that when they emailed in to ask them how they could get the speed reduced in Methven, they were told it was too late and nothing could be done until 2024. So I started a petition. I've got it here. I'll give it to you before you leave. Just over 500 signatures, which may not sound a lot, but when I go through, I pretty much recognise every single name. So I'd say 98% of Methven residents, which is good. We got quite a few comments as well, you know, families just worried about the safety. So my question was, what's the best steps going forward to get that speed limit lowered before 2024?
Thank you for raising the issue. It's an important one. There isn't an easy answer for before 2024. I'll try to lay out what I know is happening and give you a pathway. So the short answer is we are changing nationally the speed rule under which, you know, speed limits are changed, and that will make it easier for us all, both yourselves as a road controlling authority and ourselves, to alter speeds. It will move us from having to consider corridors to being able to consider the full network, and that will make a regional discussion about these sorts of stretches of road easier to have and easier for you to raise. So we are currently stuck, understandably, but somewhat annoyingly to a community like yours, prioritising a limited budget the corridors that we can bite off and do the way the rule currently requires us to do. And the truth about your stretch of road is that it simply doesn't, it isn't as bad as the worst in Canterbury. Yeah. It's not a good one. It ranks high, just not high enough. So when the rule is changed, when it's signed off by Cabinet soon and comes into force, that will allow a discussion at the RTC, at the Regional Transport Committee, that can look regionally at these sorts of things, and that is your opportunity to get this done faster. So the answer is, by way of your council's membership of the RTC, we can have a regional discussion about priorities for speed reduction. That said, we can continue to look at its priority and make sure that we are, you know, that it hasn't gotten worse and therefore ahead of other things, and check whether we don't have an ability to shift some things around. So thank you for raising it. You're doing the right thing by engaging with the community and getting the issue profile. But under the existing speed management rule, there's limited capacity for us to address things outside of the high priority corridors. So keep talking about it with your community. Keep talking to us about it.
But if we, yeah, I understand that, and I mean, we were told, I think, at one of the road safety meetings that the rule was to be changed in March, but they weren't sounding hopeful because it had already been moved from October to March, so it was going to be delayed even further. It's probably going to end up being delayed, so it's still 2024 is when it's going to happen, and it just astounds me that a sign can't be moved 300 metres down the road.
We're bound by the existing legal process, which we don't control.
So the only alternative is to, I can give you this, that's great.
Please, yeah, no, please
do. Pretty much nothing's going to change unless the rule change comes in.
Well, the rule will change, and we are still hoping for March, and that will enable a different process to be applied. So that's as good as I can say.
Let's hope it is expedited, because I think Liz is ready to head down there with a shovel and pull one sign out and just move it 500 metres and dig it back in and further down the road.
Please don't, but no, I understand the frustration.
I know she's tempted and frustrated, as Bedford people are, but it seems so simple and it's just frustrating.
I know.
Yeah, that's good. Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and really I'm just going to carry on with that conversation, and thank you for your explanation, but me being just a simple country boy that's had a few birthdays, it is absolutely beyond my understanding why you cannot just go out, make a common sense decision and put a sign up. I could do it in 30 minutes. And I know you tell me you're bound by regulation and protocols and bureaucracy and all those things. Is there nothing we can do about it? We just have to wait till somebody in Wellington decides they're going to change the rule? Well, it just beggars belief.
It's not that there's nothing you can do about it. As I say, I think actually community discussion and pressure is worthwhile. It raises profile. It forces us to check that we're still prioritising things correctly. But you will appreciate, as a council, the sort of consultation processes that you're required to undertake for all sorts of activities, and it is no different for speed. So it takes about a year from when you start to change a speed limit. And I'm just most of the way through, for example, the Christchurch to Akaroa State Highway. We haven't come out and finalised the decision on that, but it will be about a year from start to finish on that kind of process. There are 2 consultation processes required, for example, 2 separate iterations of consultation with the community required, plus all of the engineering assessments and things like that. So I do understand the layman's approach, but it's not one I can apply.
Yeah, thanks. We're constrained. Liz?
Sorry, me again. Something I forgot to ask is there's a sort of a makeshift footpath down the side of that road, and obviously you're walking beside a 100k area, and people race past, and now with the hot pools, their signage is sort of, a lot of people drive past and don't sort of see the entrance to the hot pool, so then they have to do a U-E in a 100k area and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, having the hot pools there has certainly made a difference. But the walking track, what are the rules and regulations around walking tracks beside a state highway, 100k area? And
we should take a look. So, Councillor, I'll get the exact stretch from you, and I'll go and have a look.
Thank you.
Great. Luke, Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask about for Rakawa. They've been sort of going for about 10 years now, trying to reduce the speed through that settlement. Have they got to wait for this law too, and that's going to be another 2 years again before they can reduce the speed through there? They've had submissions, and
once we have the new speed management rule, I'm not saying all problems will go away. But we'll have a different class of problem. So this is a lot harder. This is why the speed management rule is being changed nationally, because look, countless communities across the country struggle to get their particular issue important enough. It has to be. It's not that it has to be bad. It has to be bad enough relative to everyone else in order to. It's not tenable. If we're to do what communities need and reduce the speed, we need to change the way we're doing it. That's why this whole process is changing. And I understand your frustration, I really do. But once it's changed, we should have a better way at a regional level of considering where and how to reduce speed. So we're caught waiting for the rule change.
I think we need to try and speed it up because these communities, they just had enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
James, I see in the newspaper that Northland is getting reduction in their speed limits in places around Northland for something that's come in. How does that relate to, say, Ashburton District or Canterbury? Is that likely to happen here?
So
what's that process?
So again, so Northland, I think you'll be seeing reporting on an intention of us to consult sometime soon on reductions on the state highway network. So again, it's a corridor approach. The Northland state highway network is particularly bad. You'll appreciate. You will have also seen media commentary around our decisions around State Highway 5 on the East Coast. Oh, sorry, Talbot and Napier. So we nationally prioritise stretches. I can tell you what the priority corridors are in Canterbury for now, but as I say, that's as we're working through the corridor approach under the current speed rule. There is an opportunity once the rule changes for us to do this differently. If you want, so the current three most important corridors from a Canterbury perspective, State Highway 73, 75, that's Christchurch to Akaroa, and as I say, we're largely through that process now, although we haven't announced any final decision. State Highway 73, Russley Road to West Melton, and State Highway 8, Lake Pukaki to Omarama.
Oh, yeah. At this stage, that's good. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Falloon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on something positive. It really is a pleasure now to drive from Rolleston into Christchurch. It has actually reduced the time from Ashburton to central Christchurch by between 20 and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was long delayed, but the job is absolutely fantastic. The only improvement that maybe could be made is where you come off the motorway, approaching Rolleston, having to go from 2 lane down to 1 lane, and to me, it's, but thank you.
So you're welcome. Yes, it was done for a reason, but it won't stay that way. So the project that I referred to earlier that includes Duns Crossing at the south will include that access point. So
I think there's an overbridge or something going in there.
It's on its way. Yeah.
Just the last point you've got on the board, South Canterbury NOC. What is that? What's that?
So that is the maintenance contract for our state highway network.
Oh, yeah.
So we divide the country up into a bunch of network operating. NOC stands for, just a minute.
Just put your line on.
Network operations contract. So, for South Canterbury, it's Downers at the moment. So you'll see their vehicles out undertaking maintenance work on the state highway, and it's simply to note that contract will be up.
Just about to be done. Yeah, that's great. Councillors, any further questions? I think we've had a reasonably good update, James and team. It's really, really good. Good dialogue. You've heard our concerns and you've given us the answers and why things.
I've got a bunch of different answers to go back to, but that's as I expected. That's the way it should be.
You're writing busily there, so got the notes. So thanks very much. If you wanted to send them to me, then I can distribute to.
I think that's.
Yeah, then everyone
needs to see the answers.
That's really good.
Playing favourites.
So thank you and your team for coming down. That's really good, and we'll do it again soon, no doubt. And it's good, positive.
I'll see you at the Transport Committee tomorrow. So
later tomorrow, on Zoom will be.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. Well done, great. Go on, Liz will present you the petition. Sarah, can we have lights on, please? I can see what we're doing. Moving on now, councillors, to the item number 4. Yeah, I'll do the minutes in that first. Yeah. Item number 4, council minutes. Any alterations or additions on page 3? Page 4. 5. Angus.
Mr Mayor, thank you. Council agreed the heavy traffic prohibitions should not apply for council organised events. I know of no council organised events that we organise on East Street Roadway. I've checked with council, with Group Manager, Mr McCann. He does not believe he said the word organised. And I've also checked with the Truth, as in the Ashburton Guardian on the 5th of the 2nd, 2022, council approved events. Can that be changed, please, from organised to approved?
It's in item number 5 on page 4.
Yes, at this first sentence.
Council amends Schedule D1.
And in public places, I really think it's there should be just events, because if you want to have an event on the roadway, you have to come and get council approval, is my understanding, for the Christmas parade and the Wheels Week, etc., etc., etc. Please, have I got it wrong?
Through Mr Mayor, as I read that the council organised events is not part of the resolution, so it's a descriptor leading to the resolution. So the particular amendments relate to the formal matters in clauses 1 and 2, so it may not be that impactful. And secondly, it may well be at some point in the future, there might well be an organised event where we would benefit from this exemption. You know, if we were to do something that required the delivery of something, and it was for an event we organised, perhaps, for example, the opening of something or whatever, then we may wish that the word organised was in there at that point.
So wouldn't we have to, supplementary, Mr Mayor?
Yep.
Wouldn't we have to apply to ourselves for permission, approval?
Well, essentially, as I read it, that was what council was doing here. They were giving that exemption at that moment in time.
And that'll be written into the bylaw?
Yeah.
Won't be in the recommendation. So
the minutes are different to the bylaw?
The words you're talking about will be in the bylaw.
So the minutes do not reflect what will be in the bylaw?
This resolution should impact on the bylaw in the manner in which it is described here as per the resolution.
The meeting was recorded, so we can go back to the recording and put in exactly what was said, moved and seconded at the meeting.
Mr McCann definitely said approved, because remember I went to him for the words.
Yep. We'll go back and watch the recording and we'll put in exactly what was said into that bylaw, because that was the intent. And if this is not right, we can amend that. Because we won't go what's on the Guardian, we'll go with the actual recording of what was said, because it can't be altered in any way. Okay, so we'll get that amended, Angus, as to what was said. At page 5, alterations, page 6. Page 7. Someone like to move that that was meeting taken as read and confirmed with that amendment, which will be confirmed.
I'll move.
Councillor McMillan. Councillor Latham. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Again. Number 5, Methven Community Board minutes. The alterations or additions on page 8. Page 9. There's a we'll move the minutes, then we'll do the recommendation. We'll try.
I'll move the minutes. Yeah.
Take it as read and confirmed. Liz and Roger, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Good. Now there's a recommendation there on page 9. Liz?
Yes, I'll move that the council supports the Methven Community Board's intention to write to Waka Kotahi, urging them to reduce the speed limit on State Highway 77 between Ōpuki Hot Pools and Methven Township's 50k zone. So that's just...
Councillor Rawlinson beat you to it.
I was about to happily second it too.
Yep. Any debate, discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Again, carried. Item number 6, the road safety minutes.
I'm going to move that.
The minutes, move in a second. Councillor Lovett, Councillor Rawlinson, the minutes of the February 1st council meeting be Road Safety Committee meeting be taken as read and confirmed. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Item number 7, audit and risk minutes. The minutes of the 9th of February 2022 council meeting be taken as read and confirmed. Councillor Falloon, Councillor Cameron. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And there's a couple of recommendations there. And the first one is the council adopts the fraud and corruption policy with the noted amendments. Mover seconder for that. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Brown. Open for debate, discussion.
Just a question, that's coming up as one of the items, isn't it? So we don't discuss that separately? Do we do that now? That's coming up. Yeah, later in the agenda. Because we just put it forward and then it goes to council for consideration, doesn't it?
I don't see it here.
Yeah, it's almost the next one down.
What page are you on?
Crikey. Yeah, it's a copy of it, page 14, yeah.
You're doing it right now.
Okay, sure. Oh, well, we think it's fine.
So you're happy, the policy's attached.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now's your time if you're not happy with that policy to say.
No, we discussed it at the committee meeting of the
risk we did, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy with it.
So it's just flowing on through.
I'm happy to move it, you know.
I've got Stuart and I've got Lane seconded. John, no, fine, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Item number 6, the recommendation there, the employment opportunities of policy, and we're just receiving that. And the report is also attached. Someone like to move? Councillor Brown, Councillor Lovett. Open for discussion. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving over to item number 8. And report here on development contribution reconsideration request for Mr. Hilda Liddell. Mr. Magon, have you any further to add to your report?
There are a couple of factual points I think need to be highlighted through you, Mr. Mayor. When Mrs. Liddell came into the office on, I believe it was the 17th of August, she met with a council officer who she wasn't able to recall his name. That was Mr. Michael Wong. And he recalls his meeting with Mrs. Liddell. And that, amongst other things, he recalls speaking to the officer, as Mrs. Liddell described, and asking that that officer ensure that all future communications went out by post. He also recalls that he handed Mrs. Liddell a copy of the development contributions notice, and at the time he made a file note to that effect. That's really important because that is our formal notice to the person who's applied for the building consent, that on receiving their consent they have a liability for the development contribution. The second point that also needs to be I think highlighted is that the council issued notice that it was ready to issue building consent on or about the 15th of September. And when we issue that notice, we attach an invoice for the building consent fees, and where a development contribution is also incurred, we attach a separate invoice for the development contribution. And from what we've heard from Mrs. Liddell, almost as soon as they received those documents, they came in and they paid one of the invoices, namely the invoice for the building consent fees, but they didn't pay the other, which was the development contributions. As I've noted in the report, I'm not going to attempt to explain any other aspects of the customer service which has been patchy at best in this particular case. But I would note to you that we have provided Mrs. Liddell with the development contribution notice. We have provided them with an invoice that explained what it was for, and the grounds under the Local Government Act for reconsidering this particular request do not apply. So hence the recommendation in the report that the request for reconsideration be declined and the council direct officers to enter into a payment plan. And I'm sorry, there was a spelling mistake in the second recommendation. Noting that council will withhold code compliance certificate until the development contribution is paid. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Richard, could you just explain to us what's the development contribution for? Why are we charging this contribution?
Yeah.
Where's it go? What's happened to it?
In this case, it was a community infrastructure development contribution. So you will know that we have development contributions for water supply and for wastewater and for community infrastructure. Water and wastewater apply where we have schemes that we are doing some capital work or have done some capital work for growth. That is not the case at Mayfield. Our community infrastructure contribution, however, is charged across the district as a whole for community infrastructure that's available to the district as a whole. And in this case, that infrastructure includes the Library and Civic Centre, the EA Network Centre, and the Art Gallery and Heritage Centre. In the case of the Art Gallery and Heritage Centre and EA Networks, it's basically historic money that was spent when those facilities were built to recognise that the facilities would serve a growing population over time. And in the case of the Library and Civic Centre, that project is still under construction, so it recognised some of the expenditure incurred to date, but predominantly expenditure that will occur until the project is completed. And again, it's for the growth, the future growth of the district.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I quote, and I'd like to know the meaning of patchy at best. What was that referring to, please? And in your considered opinion, what does it mean?
I'm a little bit loath to stick my head in the lion's jaws, given that my group manager is also responsible for the staff here.
Yeah, Richard, well, Hamish will answer that, or take it.
Yes, thank you. Like all these matters, there, on reflection, I think we can see that we could have dealt in a better way with Mrs. Liddell's inquiry at times. Equally, all the research that we did internally didn't absolutely confirm every aspect of the way Mrs. Liddell sees this matter. So I think we would accept there are some lessons in here for us, but equally there are some things we think we did do that weren't quite as outlined.
Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder sometimes the staff I've found have been excellent. They've executed what they are supposed to do in their modus operandi, for the want of a better word. But sometimes when these situations develop, I wonder if the staff or the group manager for that area just had a word with the local councillor, because, you know, one of us could have gone, had a yarn to Mrs. Liddell, just found out what the problem was, gone back and perhaps smoothed the path and got the thing done, because that's what we're here for. Now, I'm not laying criticism at anybody's door. It's not worked out well, but sometimes a local councillor who knows the local area, who knows the people, can sometimes just smooth the path there.
You'll take that on board. Yep. Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Through the Mayor, is it usual to have a payment plan for development contributions? Is this a one-off, or is it something that regularly happens? I think it's a good idea, by the way.
From my conversations with Mrs. Register, the Finance Manager, and Mr. Brake, it's not uncommon for council to enter into payment plans with ratepayers, and sometimes people get into arrears for their rates, for example. However, it's not as common, or in fact not common at all, and this may well be the first one if it were to come to pass, to have one for a development contribution. By the same token, I'm not sure that it's common to see the level of resourcefulness that Mr. and Mrs. Liddell have applied to be building a home at their mature stage of life. I take my hat off to them. I think it's actually amazing. So if we can accommodate them in some way, I think that would be a very good outcome.
Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you. I've got a couple of points, and I have empathy with Mrs. Liddell, but it's hard when the rules are the rules. And my question is that, it's a question and it's a comment, in the whole system of somebody purchasing a section, whether it's residential D or in town, there appears to be a gap where no one tells them about development contributions. And now, I've had 2 people come to me recently who have bought sections and then afterwards found out about DCs, and they had absolutely no idea. They're just genuine human beings looking forward to buying a section, and I think somewhere the realtor or the lawyer should be saying, are you aware? It's not really our responsibility, but I think there's a gap in the knowledge book somewhere of how do people find out about these things when they're going to buy. And I really think probably lawyers are the ones who should be telling them, but obviously they're not. Yeah. So how we get around that, I don't know, but I just want to raise that question.
Yeah, Jane?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not apply for a LIM when they're buying an empty section. If they did, they would find out. To try and counteract that, about 5 or 6 years ago, we held a seminar and we invited all the local lawyers and real estate agents along to talk about the LIM process, and in particular to talk about this issue, because we'd had a number of people feeling they were caught out and that they had been misled by the developer they bought the section from, because they had been told that water and sewer were available. And that's true, it is available, it's just that you've got to pay to then connect. And it really surprised us that a number of the local lawyers and real estate agents were not aware of that particular fact. And so it was quite informative, but I'm thinking that we could perhaps have another one and do a repeat performance to try and get that message across.
Yeah, if it's been 5 or 6 years, the lawyers haven't changed much, but there's some new ones coming through, and the agents, they change, some of them change quite often, so it would be good to run that again, I think, for information purposes. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is, because I'm slightly confused here, is the lawyer asking for the building consent, or is the person asking for the building consent? If they are asking for a building consent, are they not then become or about to become a customer of us? And in all due respect, should we not make it clearer somehow that there will be development contributions as well? I see it as our responsibility to be clearer and try harder to leave no room for any doubt in the future. I would like to go further, but I won't, because I think the Chief Executive's already got my meaning from my previous question.
Yep. Councillor Brown. Oh, Jane.
I just, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, the answer to that, we put it on every PIN, so whenever somebody applies for a building consent and DCs apply, that's on the PIN.
Could you just tell us what a PIM is again, because Mrs Liddell did bring up a PIM, but she wasn't sure what it was.
Yeah, it's a project information memorandum, and so that tells the applicant everything they need to know about the building project, whether it needs resource consent, whether it needs another consent from ECAN, if DCs apply and what they will cost, or whether it's got soft ground and you're going to need an engineering report, that type of thing.
So every person who applies for building consent gets one of them? Yep. And Mrs Liddell did get one of them, went to her, someone else, but yeah. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who can answer this, but the development contribution, how does it happen in other districts? Are we the only one who are doing it, or is it hidden somewhere else, or how is it working in other communities?
Richard Jane?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think most councils have them. I don't know about all councils. I think there might be the odd council doesn't or only has one or two. Most of them charge at subdivision stage. That's where we would be a little bit different. We charge at building consent stage, whereas most other councils charge the developer when as part of the subdivision approval. So then when the person comes along and buys the section and wants to build, they're already paid.
By the developer?
Pardon?
Then it's paid by the developer, is that correct? Okay.
It was discussed at the Revenue and Financing Policy 12 months or whatever ago. We did that, or a bit more than that now. Yeah, it was discussed then and we did, went through the whole process.
And the further rationale for that, of course, is that the developer builds it into the price of the land, and so the land is more expensive. And council's reason for collecting it at the stage of the building consent is to try and incentivise development in our district. So there's reasons why we put it at that stage of the building consent, but it does create this gap sometimes in the knowledge of the person that the contribution is to be paid. But that's the reason council has it that way round, is to encourage development.
Well, okay, councillors, decision time. So the recommendation in front of us, Councillor Falloon.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I would move the recommendation, both parts 1 and 2. I particularly support part 2, where council officers enter into a payment plan with Mr and Mrs Liddell.
Do I have a seconder?
And I will second that, as it is.
Open for debate, discussion. There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mrs Liddell. I don't think it's the answer you required, but it's the answer that was determined. Thank you.
Can I say anything?
Well, you
at this point? Because there is one thing that I'm very...
Oh, hey, yeah, we'll let you come up and talk to us and put the speaker on. Yep.
On the 17th of August, when I just came in to pay the rates. I did not receive anything from anybody. Excuse me, the man that said that he had spoken to me, could you explain who that was?
It was Mr Wong.
Mr Wong.
Yeah.
Now, Mr Wong, is he an Asian?
I think so.
Is he of Asian? Because the man I spoke to for less than 2 minutes was not Asian. He was a small, young, mind you, Mr Mayor, look young to me, but...
Thank you.
But he was less than middle-aged, a small, thin man, and I just spoke to him, And he was there and he said, okay, we'll sort this out. And he went over and said to me, there was nothing given to me because at that point we didn't know that there was a problem. We hadn't heard anything about this.
Yeah, the
thing.
things.
Okay, so-
Yeah, but all that information would have been on the PIM, which went to your agent, I think, and not yourself, but it would have been on there.
That's right.
But we're all learning from this, so, but thank you for raising
But
it.
I just want to make it clear that we did not receive anything from Mr. Wong or anybody else
Okay,
about this thing.
thanks very much. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, councillor. Next item on the agenda is item number 9, mid-year performance report. And Janice.
Kia ora koutou, through you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I'd just go over how this report is formulated as a wee refresher. So any of the measures that start with the intro that says that users or residents are satisfied, year-to-date results from the annual residents survey. All other results are filled in by reporting systems from their respective management teams. The year-to-date results include measurements from wave 1 and 2 of the annual residents survey. Data collection for wave 1 took place between the 6th of September 2021 to the 13th of October 2021, with an achieved sample size of 252 participants. Data collection for wave 2 took place between the 4th of December 21 to the 18th of January 22, with an achieved sample of 194 participants. So the year-to-date stats are based from 446 participants. Also, we made some inquiries with the research provider Key Research and about our general results, and what they've replied is that general perceptions of council performance across councils that they work for have decreased over the pandemic period. Last year, for example, there was only one benchmarked council that managed to improve its overall performance score. And as a consequence of this, they are starting to introduce some wellbeing questions similar to our sentiment questions that we measure to understand if it's general despondency, which it's suspected due to COVID, as opposed to specific performance of the council. So with that, yeah, that's all from me, thanks.
But questions, councillor, of the report? I just have one, and it's on page 22, one of the report, and it's reduction in real water loss from the reticulated systems, and we're targeting 35%. We did have 55, we're down to 51, so we made a slight improvement. How are we, and it might not be a question for yourself, but how are we trying to achieve this better now that we've got water meters on a lot of places? How are we achieving this? Yeah.
Through the Mayor, that is in fact correct. That the installation of the meters is a big step towards this, and of course we haven't installed all the meters in Methven yet, but we are progressing as soon as we get the meters. So that is just one step, and the others is leak detection, replacement of old mains as well. So it's a whole program that's intended to reduce that.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, I just remember the council's decision was for the trial to be a Methven. So Methven is a trial of those meters to see whether or not, in fact, they do give the benefit that we expect around leak detection.
Yeah.
And once we've got them installed and done some reading and monitoring, we'll know much better whether or not.
So we do have them on Mount Somers and Mayfield at the moment, so I assume they're being used to get the leaks down. Yeah, Councillor Fallu.
Yeah, just on page 30, are we not testing for a protozoal compliance yet? We've got a target there of 100%.
Through the Mayor, that's at the moment we cannot prove that there's no presence of protozoa. And that's why we are putting the UV treatment, so we are taking steps towards addressing that. But at the moment, we cannot prove that there's absolutely no presence of it.
And it's that lack of proof that gives rise to the failure, not the fact that it's not to say there's protozoa present, it's that without the adequate treatment system, you can't categorically say.
And we're budgeting for that in the next financial year.
And we're budgeting to do that in the next financial year as part of the major works program over the next couple of years, is to be in a position such that we can.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you.
Just pull that wand a bit closer to you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just going to page, through the chair to Janice, to page 28, provide curbside collection. I'm particularly interested in waste reduction and recovery facilities. Increase the volume recovered from the waste stream. Is that just the rubbish that comes to the place that we take out the recyclables out of that? Just pick it off a conveyor belt or something, is that what that means?
I think that will be for Neil as well.
Yeah, I believe that's the...
It's not from the waterways, is it?
No. This is the refuse, the diversion, what we're diverting from the rubbish stream.
The waste stream refers to all rubbish.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I
It's
assumed.
about increasing the percentage of recyclable material from the overall total.
So we put it in our wheelie bins and it's collected from the curbside. So when we put it in a yellow bin, which is our recycling bin, it goes on a belt or something and things are picked out of there that aren't recyclable, or how does that actually?
No, this is really at looking at the recyclable material and how much of that the increase in how much and how recycling versus our waste stream. So it's a change in the percentage of what's recyclable of the total refuse.
Okay.
So are we recycling more is the measure, really? Are we increasing our recycling and waste diversion?
Because we've got very small measures there, like a target plus one or one, like nothing really. So you want to stay the same pretty much.
Yeah, that was the target set, and we obviously aim to achieve higher than that. But our diversion is exceptionally good here.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that target will be in the waste management plan.
That's correct.
Where it comes from.
Yes.
Which we will update when we get to that part in the next few months. Yeah. Councillor Lovett?
I'm just looking at the wording, like reduction in fatal and fatalities on your roads. It's really stating facts, because we...
What page are you on?
Sorry, 26. Where the better wording can be that, because we can't influence reductions. It's human error, and you're only really stating facts.
Thank you.
Reduction, yeah.
Through the Chair, so we have a series of performance measures that are mandatory by the Department of Internal Affairs, and we have tried to readjust their language to make more sense for the common user, hence why you see the italics underneath it, trying to explain it, but we are not able to, from Audit New Zealand, pick up on it every time we give it a crack. So unfortunately we are stuck with some of these measures.
Just on that same page, and it talks about the sealed local road network is well maintained, and there's a 6%, a 4% target and 0.5. What does those figures actually mean?
I'll have to refer to the GM for that one, sorry.
So you can just repeat that?
On page 26,
yeah.
Under the sealed local road network is well maintained, then there's the 6% was last year's result, 4% is the target and 0.5 is this year's result. What does the percentages actually mean?
The percentage of the total sealed road network
that is well maintained.
Yeah, I'll have to confirm.
So there's only 0.5% of the road that is well maintained. The other 99.5% is not.
That's how it looks like.
I don't think that's correct.
You can see from the comments it refers to the contracts that are being let in the work that is currently underway. So my expectation is that it relates to some of that contracted work. Otherwise,
to the programmed work, I think.
Yeah. Yep. But we will absolutely
confirm that.
Get back what the measurement is.
I don't think the comments answer the question. I don't think, but
no. But I'm drawing an inference that they're relevant.
There might be. Yeah. Okay. You'll have a look at that. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Through the chair, just page 32 on the libraries, and you've got a couple of new measures in there about activity programs, and looks like they've been blown out of the water. So your target was 10 and you ended up with 465. Will that target change, or is that just an exceptional year with the activity? If anyone knows that.
Thank you, through the chair. So the measures and the targets get set through the long-term plan, and what we'll find is that they're pretty tricky to change unless we're doing an LTP review. So we'll be stuck with this target in effect until we get to the next review of the long-term plan, and we'll start end of this year, really. Okay. So it is what it is right now. I might just go and double check how we're counting that versus what we might have originally thought, because it does seem quite a difference. But the libraries certainly are delivering a lot more events and programs than what they have done in the past.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Cameron?
Just following on from Liz, I had the same question on that page as well, just because we've had the chat around the development contributions, and I refer to the centre, the library and the museum and the art gallery and things. These, and a lot of the goals in our feedback are 98, 99, 100, 97, 96. They're so, they're not very sensitive, are they, as measures? You know, we can't really, is there any other measure? I mean, I remember the workshop and I remember discussing it, and I think we were limited by what we could put in them, but it would be good if we could have more sensitive measures other than, you know, like if we look here, we will have a library that is welcoming community-centred destination, or users are satisfied 98, and our goal is 90, target's 95, and we got 96. I mean, they don't really tell us much. They just tell us that they're satisfied. It would be quite good to have. Well, I want to know what they're satisfied with, or where's the gaps. Like when you're so, you know, why are we building a new library if we're so satisfied? You know, there must be some gaps somewhere where we can improve. There's no feedback in that where our gaps are, unless we have no gaps. Yeah.
Satisfied with the service, but not the building. Perhaps.
Maybe. Well, we don't know that, Mr. Mayor, because it doesn't say.
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, these measures are intended to be a snapshot. They're intended to give councillors a general impression of the various services, and I think the sort of drilling into one part of the council's operation and that sort of detail would render a resident survey so big and unwieldy that no one would ever complete it. So this is intended to give you a general impression, and I've always felt, other than in a couple of exceptions, that the most important thing are the trends as opposed to the absolute numbers, because that's showing whether or not the question particularly resonates. We know that more or less of our community are feeling that way about the service over time, and that's the sort of matter that that we in the office take more note of than the absolute number. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but that's generally the trend that's important with satisfaction as opposed to the absolutes.
Sorry.
Do it supplementary.
Okay.
Just quickly, like to prove my point, we've got the Ashburton Museum meets New Zealand Museum standards. So 2021, the resident survey, 80% of them said we did. Our goal was 75%, and this year we've got 80%. So, yeah.
So, thank you, through the chair. If I can just clarify that, that's not to do with our resident survey, that particular one. That's to do with how far along the path we are to meeting the New Zealand standards with our museum. So,
John?
Yeah, page 41, building regulation. Building consents are processed and decisions made within 20 working days. I see for the first 6 months we've achieved 35% rather than 100. Is that due to the pressure that the building department has been under with the numbers of consents that they've had to process? And I presume most of those consents would have been processed rather quickly, but if they're more than an hour late type of thing, they're deemed as not meeting 100%. Jane?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it's sheer volume. There's also a degree of complexity in there because of disruptions to the supply chain. We are also getting a lot of amendments because people are having to change the type of material that they were planning on using, and that often requires extra work on our part to process that. It is a very disappointing result, and I think I told you in the issue sheet on Friday, we're being audited this week by IONS, our 2-yearly Building Consent Authority audit, and they've already issued us with a couple of corrective actions to do with not meeting the timeframes and saying we haven't got enough staff, which is, I think, probably being told to every New Zealand council at the moment because nobody is managing to meet the timeframe. We're hoping that we'll get that improved and back on track, but if the numbers stay as high as they are at the moment, that's going to be extremely difficult to do.
I seem to recall, Jane, at the last activity briefing that the building services manager advised council that the average period was 24 days. So while as a number not meeting the 20, on average a consent is taking 24. So that's hopefully gives council some indication of the long run. And I also recall Mr. Wong talking to council about there's no leeway around complexity. And so the 20 days applies to the rebuild of Ashburton College as much as it applies to a cookie cutter, 3-bedroom home. So you don't get an extra time just because it's $70 million and really complex. So that's the sort of context, if you like, that sits in behind some bald numbers, which we would like to be better.
Thank you. Just final question. Oh, Neil.
Yeah, just going back to page 26, the question on the sealed road maintenance. That is the percentage of the road network, the sealed road network that we resurface a year. So it's 4% of the network. So roughly every 20, 25 years we would surface a road. But obviously depends on the hierarchy of the road. Some are done more frequently and others less. So the intention is 4%, which is, as I say, and at the moment we've only done 0.5, but we're into the sealing season now.
Yep. I think that's correct, but the answer you've got is different to the question, I think.
The wording is one that we've got it, yeah, it's a mandatory wording measure.
That's fine. I'll just make it the final question. Page 27, on the residents satisfied with council sealed roads, and we've dropped down to 21%, and that is what it is because we've heard a lot of grumblings over the last 6 months or more since the flooding in the winter of the roads, etc., and it's been through a period of unprecedented flooding really, and road damage and etc. And we councillors are addressing that through the budget to try and put some more money in there to bring it up to speed, and hopefully that 21 will be a lot higher next time around in the new financial year. So councillors are addressing it, so hope to see some improvement there, but it is what it is at the moment. And yeah. Councillors, any further questions? If not, someone move that we receive that report. Well, there was a recommendation there that we receive the mid-year non-financial performance report. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item is the Ashburton, item number 10. Thanks, Tony. Ashburton Car Club Gravel Sprints event. Page 37. Reese, reports there. Anything further to add to your report? No. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Mackay.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lover, you got a question?
No, I was going to second.
Okay, moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. Angus, John.
I was going to ask a question.
Okay.
Oh, if I may.
Yep.
They have to, as part of it, they have to put the road back into the same condition that it was at the beginning of the day, and that's checked by council officers. Does that mean that if the road is cut up, that they're employing someone like HEB or a recognised contractor to put the shingle back where it should be and that sort of thing?
So as part of the process, we have an engineer actually go out and inspect the condition of the road prior to the event. This can also be done with the organiser at their request, obviously prior to the event, and then an additional inspection is conducted at the end to assess if further work is done or if there's any further damage. and then it's then agreed as part of the conditions of the road closure that it's the responsibility of the organiser to pay for any damages that have been there prior to the event.
Councillor Lovett?
I'm just going to ask, like the car club, this has come in, the late Shane Jones, he was a pivotal person in the car club and he organised everything, he had it at his fingertips. And just wondering, you've had discussions with the car club because they do a lot of events and they're probably unaware of what Shane actually did. You know, just sort of going forward just to keep them on board and what all the requirements are.
So James Lamb, myself and Verity all work closely with the event organisers, and the Ashburton Car Club have been absolutely superb over the number of years, and let's say the contributions from Shane have been invaluable. Obviously with him no longer being around, we assist the Ashburton Car Club as much as possible, outlining all the additional requirements, and if there's anything else that new comes in, we'll basically walk them through, have additional meetings and everything else. We'll, like I say, we just liaise with them as much as possible. It's a fantastic club to have and a really valuable attraction to the district. So.
Okay, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Reece. Move over to the the Mayor's report. Is it? No, financial. 50. You sure? It's not more 50.
42 on
43.
There we go. Mayor's report, just item number 11, Volunteer Firefighters Welfare Fund Trustee, just changing that slightly, bringing in the urban rural firefighters in with the rural because of the change from FENS. So I'll sign that off, their new deed. Just informing you of that. Next one is the Tongan Pacifica community. They had obviously you'd know about the volcano and tsunami and the devastation there. They've been in and visited and asking for support for their fundraising efforts to assist with the rebuilding of what they've had happened to them over there. So they had one event on Saturday at the farmers market, which raised a reasonable amount of money, which was good, and I'm sure they'll have more events going forward. So please support and urge others to support them as well while they're going through these tough times. Anything else on the Mayor's report you'd like clarification on? If Councillor McMillan.
Not clarification, but I was just going to explain that co-driver pilot program launch that I went to in place of the Mayor on the last Friday, and it's sort of a training drivers training system that's been developed, and just to let you all know that there's one in place at Ashburton College at the moment, and they hope to have that in there for a couple of years, and then they're looking at putting in the station things in every high school in Mid and South Canterbury. So it was quite good to look at.
Thank you. Just one clarification there. 8th of February greenhouse gas webinar. When this was written, I was going to attend, but I never did. So we'll remove that one. I'll move that, Councillor McMillan. I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report.
I'll second.
Open for debate, discussion. If not, put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now, over to the financial report. And we'll just do December unless someone sees something in November they'd wish to raise. Welcome, Erin. Councillors, you'll have read this at home. I don't expect you to read it now, so if you've got comments as I'm going through the pages, we'll stop at the page you want commented on. Page 47. 48. 49, 50, 51. Just note the capital expenditure on the water supplies, 3% and 9% of the money budgeted is spent. This is to the end of December, so the 6 months are gone. Are you going to get it achieved by the end of the year? You will.
Yes, I can confirm that. The work is underway, and payments will probably be a month or two behind, so it will be coming through.
Great. It happens a wee bit through the infrastructure stuff, so everything's underway for a year end. Great. Page 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, again, just might be a question for Hamish with officers not here, but on page 60, capital expenditure under recreation and community services, the capital expenditure is only 3%, 2%, 0% spent on page 60. So public conveniences, elderly housing, memorial halls, etc. Do you think it will be completed by year end, financial year end?
I will check that specifically, but that certainly is raising a flag, and in fact our own comment around the elderly person's housing is that we expect there to be a permanent variance, i.e. it won't all be spent. I just, through you, Mr Mayor, could I just go back to the water? I think the answer that Neil gave around that will all capital expenditure be spent in the water just needs to be revisited as well. That was page
51?
52.
52.
Yeah.
Yeah, 52. Yeah.
What I just remember now is we did bring forward the methane water treatment plant into this year from next year with the intention to get the work underway sooner. What did happen is the total budget came into this year, so we are definitely not going to be spending all of it, but we'll be starting the project sooner. So unfortunately in the finance reporting it's going to show that there's an unfavourable variance of about 2.9 million. But it is ultimately good news that we are starting a hell of a lot sooner than what we were originally.
Yeah.
So the work's underway, but at 30 June it won't all be spent.
Yep, Doreen.
Thanks, Nick.
Just on the capital expenditure again, the reserves and camping grounds, 1% expenditure, but there was no explanatory note. Is that to do with the swimming pools and?
It won't get an explanatory note until it turns into a yes, as in the permanent variance. And no means it will be completed by year end. If it turns to a yes, there'll be an explanation with it.
That's correct. And of course, a lot of the capital infrastructure work is best done, through the summer period when the weather's supposedly better. So it doesn't fall evenly throughout the year. There's a lot done between kind of December and April, really. Yeah.
We should see it the next couple of reports coming through.
99% catch up seemed a lot.
But it may well be one project that hasn't started yet. Yeah.
61, 62. 63, 64. 65, 66. Angus.
Oh, I can't resist, Mr Mayor, thank you so much. Capital expenditure stock water, $302,020, which is and only 5% of the budget's been spent, 15,000. What's the 302 for? And councillors, wouldn't it be better if it was rolled over to the end of the year as that figure?
What page are you on, Angus?
64. Do you want me to go again?
So, the question is on stock water capital expenditure.
Capital expenditure, 302,000. Wouldn't it be better if it was rolled through the end of the year? We could use it then in the next budget.
You're a different 64 than I've got.
It's your page 56, Mr Mayor.
I'm on Stella.
Yeah.
64 of 112.
Right. Got it.
Stock water income and expenditure report? No?
Got it. Yep, got it.
Yeah. So what's that going to be spent on? We've only spent 5% so far, so I guess the rest is not really, most of it's not going to be spent, so can it not roll through to the end of the year when we can use it in the following year?
I think it might have been fish screens.
I think that's correct, so I'll be reporting on that in a few weeks' time when we'll finalise that and get some more information on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just note the officer has not suggested it won't, has suggested it will be spent, so it's not a permanent variance.
So it's fish screens?
Oh no, I don't know that answer. I'm just saying this report suggests it will be spent by 30 June, as opposed to looking for a carryover.
You can't tell me what on.
Oh, we find
That's the bit I don't know.
I'll find out. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. 65. My 65, 66. Which is 67, which is environmental services. 69, we wanted dividends, miscellaneous dividends, internal overheads. It's probably a question for you, Hamish. I see we've got an actual year-to-date dividend come in of 500,000 on a budget of 50. Why don't we carry that forward?
Well, I'd have to think about that. We've received it, so I don't know that you can carry forward the money we've actually received in this period. I wouldn't have thought.
It wasn't budgeted, so it must have dropped into a bucket somewhere, which will be sitting because there's no budget for it.
No, but it will be impacting on the result this year because it's been received. But just because it wasn't budgeted, I don't think we can hold it off into another period when we'd rather it was received.
Let's investigate it anyway.
Shall we have a look at that, Mr. Mayor?
You know,
but it has been received. This isn't a theoretical undershoot. This is money that's come in. So I think it'll probably end up staying in the period it was received, I would have thought.
Yeah, but we can just get clarification on that.
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, or we can assign it to a reserve or something. Counts page 70, my 70. And there we have the information systems capital expenditure of 800,000. I have the same note beside mine too, carry forward, which I think you are going to do.
So again, the difference between capital expenditure as opposed to operational income.
Yeah. 71, which is the balance sheet. John.
Yeah, as at 30th of June, we had accrued liabilities of $11 million. Now, I presume a lot of that, or a big chunk of that, was made up of accruals on a large number of the expensive capital projects that were going on 6 months ago, in particular the CBD. So that has now reduced. Can I have that confirmed, please?
It's really, Mr. Mayor, I would ask Paul to perhaps comment on that, or Erin might have an answer.
That would be right. There was a lot of expenditure that was accrued at year end.
Yep.
And so during the year, because of the time frame that's covered from the dates of all the invoices that can keep coming in at the end of year, we need to try and capture as many of those as we can. And so the monthly ones are not necessarily going to have as many or as higher amounts coming through.
Can understand that. The other one is, I don't know whether it's an anomaly or not, but I see under current liabilities, which as at the end of June were a credit or an amount that was owed by council of $613,000, all of a sudden at the end of December has then turned into an asset of $4,986,000. I like when liabilities turn into assets. How did that happen?
I think you'll find that's an error, and I've got one of my team members looking into that now. It'll be to do with ECAN rates from the rate strike, and I think that may be a journal that's missing.
Thank you. Page 72, which is the net debt. 73, borrowing by activity. 74, the council investments. Paul, you got your finger up.
Yes, through Mr. Mayor, that dividend figure that you were talking about earlier with the budget of 50, that's the net figure. So it's the dividends less the negative rate contribution. So the actual dividend budget for the year was 900,000 and we've received 952. So there's not a massive difference between the two. There's 52,000 higher than budget at the moment, if you follow that. So there's income coming into that dividend line, and then there's a negative rate that goes out offsetting it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. All right, Erin, do you have something?
Yeah, that comes down to timing as well for recognition of rates revenue. So that by the end of the year, that should almost all be distributed out to other areas.
Right, thanks. False hope. Receivables, or council investments, page 74 on mine. 75 receivables. And that takes us to the end of the finance report. Councillor, any questions you have that I've brushed over you want to ask? If not, thank you, Erin. That takes us to the end of the open part of meeting.
You need to receive those.
Oh, sorry, we do. Thank you. Moving to second, we receive those financial reports, variance reports. Councillor Falloon, Councillor Lovett. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried, thank you. Someone like to move that we move into committee. Councillor McMillan, Councillor Braham, all in favour, please say aye. Against, thank you. We'll break.